Good morning, everyone. How's it going? I'm excited for today because we're painting my favorite subject matter. So I'm glad to see the rain is clearing up. I walked in my studio and it was super sunny and really nice. So I was happy to see that. So to prepare for today, you'll want to have an image. You could use an image of a cat, or you could use a crow, goat, some kind of a black animal. I did send a attachment in the email to everyone. But if you type in black cat, oh, hey, Jennifer, hey, and Jamie. Awesome, I missed both of you. So if you type in black cat into the Google search, image search, there's lots of really great things that come up. Now, I am doing a black cat because it's the season, and I actually researched it. I'm like, why are black cats associated with Halloween? And it goes back to the Middle Ages when people associated them with witches and bad luck and bad omens, but I'm reclaiming that. Apparently in, I think it's Japan, if a young woman has a black cat, she's more likely to get married. Take that for what you will. I remember when I lived up in the Northwest in the town of Bellingham, Washington. And if there's anyone from Bellingham out there that wants to correct me, there's a lot of black cat, like business names and stuff. And someone told me there was a black cat colony out there. They raised black cats for fur, but that could just be some kind of urban legend. I don't know. Regardless, what we're going to be focusing on today. Hey, Connie. Aw, thanks, Jen. Okay, so the reason why we're going to be working with this today is because, you know, it's the season, but also I want to focus on the depth that you can get when you mix black. We're going to talk about chromatic black, which is when you mix your black. And then we're going to also look at different black pigments. And not sure what kinds of paints y'all have, but I'm going to show you a fun and easy way to mix your own black. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Now I'm going to work on a picture that has two kitty cats because I might try different approaches with each cat to just see the difference. So a lot of times in my beginning painting class, or if you've taken any of my classes in the past, like I usually don't use black paint. Hi, Joanne. I usually encourage students to mix their own black. And the reason why is because a lot of times people will default to black to darken their colors, and then they just have a really gray painting. So I think if you're going to be using a black pigment, you have to have a lot of control over it. Not using a black pigment, your colors don't appear as gray or as dull. The colors tend to be have a little more life to them. However, lately, for some reason, I just love that dull gray look. Maybe it's like my current mood, I don't know, but I kind of like it lately. So it's up to you. It's your own personal preference. So I just have here, this is like what my usual palette is that I tell people to, you know, in my beginning painting class, this is what I have people get. I have them get titanium white, cadmium yellow, medium hue, alizarin crimson, burnt umber, and this is ultramarine blue. And oops, The reason why is because you can mix a really nice black from these pigments. So if you start with just these basic colors, great. If you would like to add other colors, what I like to use also, I like to use this cadmium red, medium hue. And I know like sometimes people are thinking, but I'm making a black hat. Why do I need red? Because the red, I keep putting my finger in my white paint and it's bugging me. But that red paint will add some life to your other colors. So just because you're painting something black doesn't mean you won't use these colors. So I like to add that color. And on the other end, you might add, this is a phthalo green. It's a dark green. This is often will come in a set of paints instead of black. So if you have it, you could try a little bit of that. Another color I like to use is dioxazine purple, which is a dark purple. This is dioxazine purple. This is a high flow acrylic, which is fine to use, but I think I'm actually going to use this quinacridone blue violet that I have. It's kind of the color of my shirt. So the other thing you'll notice when I set up my paints is I try to keep them going from light to dark. And I'm going to put the Naples yellow in there. We used this last week instead of titanium white. This can bring like a warmer tone to your highlight. So I'm going to use a little bit of this as well. So this is what I'm going to work with for now. And I'm going to add a black pigment later. But basically, what I thought we could do to start with is just a little quick color study. And we're going to play around with mixing a chromatic black. So chromatic black refers to any black that is made, a dark value that is made without using a black pigment. So what I tell people is mix together your 3 darkest colors. That is generally like how to get a black. So if we're going with my original palette, that would be the blue, brown, and red. But I have these other colors here, and I might dip into those as well. So if you want to play around with that to start with, just get a blank piece of paper. You could even paint over something. I was going to paint over some of the orange on my other one. But play around with mixing those your darkest colors together. And you'll get this really nice, rich result. I mean, that looks pretty dark. And the reason why this is nice is like maybe I'll add a little extra red. And then you get sort of this darker burgundy color. I'll take just a touch of white to mix it in there so you can see some of those gray results from that are really nice also. If I took a little of my my Naples yellow and mixed it in there, you can see what that does for your highlights. You might also, if you have other dark colors you're working with, your phthalo green or purple, I'm going to mix those together with like some red. Just practice mixing your dark colors together without using white. Now see, this is slightly different. That has the phthalo green in it. So it looks a little bit bluer, but still this is a great dark value to work with. It's really nice if you're making a painting to have like a shift in those dark values, because it just creates some nice interest in your painting. So if I put a little white in there, I get some nice lavenders. I'm going to go with a lot of red in there. So you might also play with light, with cool and warm highlights. So let's say you add a little titanium white to your phthalo mixture. You might get a highlight that's more on this kind of blue side. And let's say you're painting today a kitty cat that appears to have like blue or cooler highlights. That's a really good thing to keep in mind. Some black cats, when they're in the sun for a long time, they actually get, they call it rusting. They rust. They get kind of a brown tint to them. And it's so cute. I always think it looks like licorice or something, like the brownness of black licorice. But with something like that, you would maybe go a little warmer with your highlight. So what you could do is take some burnt umber, maybe a little cadmium red, a little titanium white, and something like that could be your highlight. So you see, actually that doesn't show up a lot, but think about like, this is a cooler because it's veering into the blues. This is a little bit warmer because it's veering into like, think of a toasty fire or something. So if we look at the painting that I did as a little practice, this actually has a lot of warmer like reds and pinks in the highlights. I don't know if you can tell in the camera, but I didn't use a lot of blue highlights for this. So yeah, play around with mixing your dark colors to get some interesting blacks. And another thing you can try, I mean, just for the sake of playing with color, is working the other way. Like let's say you have a red and you want it to be darker, you want it to be more of a burgundy. Maybe you'd mix a little bit of that into your dark color. So the thing about having like a darker yellow is I rarely will work backwards. Like I usually will lighten one of these colors up instead of darken one of these. So that's why when people are like, well, how do I darken my yellow? I mean, yeah, you could take your yellow. What I do is then I take a little bit of my dark mixture and mix it in there for something like that. But to me, that's more of a green rather than a dark yellow. If you wanted, like a dark yellow to me is an orange. So maybe I would mix an orange in there, like that. But since I tend to build a painting up with middle tones and then I go darker and lighter, I rarely have to darken these colors. I usually use these colors more to lighten these colors. Like I usually think of it that way more. I don't know if that makes sense, but let's try also some black pigment. Licorice is the name of your first black cat. That is a great name. So cute. So I've been exploring black pigments a little more. I have Mars Black here, and I have Lamp Black. And I did a little research. Lamp Black gets its name because it was originally made with the soot of oil lamps. Mars Black was made from dust from Mars. Just kidding. It's made from an iron oxide. Mars is the god of war and iron or something. Somebody can correct me with that. I'm going to compare these two, the Mars Black and the Lamp Black, just for fun. So I have them here. I'm going to just take a little, just to try it out in the beginning, just to see the difference. I'm taking a little titanium white. So you see how that's a lot grayer than that. You can play around with that. Like, I really like the combination of these. I'm also going to take my Lamp Black, add a little white to it to see if there's a big difference. These are also not the best pigments. I can tell you the Lamp Black has a really weird odor to it, but that's the difference there. It's pretty subtle. The Lamp Black appears to be a little warmer in color and a little more opaque, I think. So if you are going to work with black out of the tube, something I like to recommend to people, because blacks tend to veer on the cold side, is to take a little red and mix it into your black. So you could use your cadmium red, you could use your alizarin crimson. I'm going to work with some cadmium. And just look at how that warms up the black. I remember learning this in high school and I never could understand it. Like, it was just a rule, like if you're going to use black, add red to it. And it never made sense to me till later. But there does seem to be a richness to the color when you add red to it. So I love all these grays and blacks that result from this. Like, I think that's a really pretty study of blacks. And these are the blacks out of the tube with red in them. So they are really rich. The issue comes in is, like, let's say I start to add yellow to it. Things can start to get really gray and stay really gray. The Impressionist painters didn't use black, apparently, because they said that black didn't occur naturally didn't occur in nature. Which it's weird because you think, like, there's also a pigment charcoal black, which is made from charcoal. Bone black was made from burnt bones. That is nature making the black pigment. But I think it's fun at this point in the game. I just think it's fun to explore the differences between the two. I used to kind of subscribe to this idea that you shouldn't use black out of the tube, but I completely don't agree with that anymore. I think it's fun to use them both for different reasons. Something I want to try doing, I want to paint, like maybe see what happens if I paint over this orange a little bit with some black, just to practice. What that looks like. I'm kind of, lately, I think I'm into mixing my darkest pigments into my black. and just seeing what happens there. So that's what this is here. If I want to make it more opaque, I'll probably put a little bit of cadmium red in there because it's more opaque. I don't know if you can see any of the differences here. And I'm going to grab some cooler highlights to paint on top of that. So that's just a little quick refresher on mixing black, mixing chromatic black. Whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and, I mean, if you took the rest of the hour to just keep mixing blacks, that's great. If you want to go ahead and start drawing your composition for what you're going to paint. Now I'm going to work on this gray background. That's just like all the colors of my palette combined that I painted over something with. And you could start with a marker or charcoal and just put down your initial drawing. So I will be working with the image I sent out in the email. I just love their eyes and how their eyes really pop out. And there's a lot of fun opportunities here to play with, like the background color has this really beautiful velvety color. So there's a lot of, like I notice online, there's a lot of videos where people just take white paint and they paint that on and that's their highlights. I just want us to go a little deeper than that. Like just, you know, try to get like those beautiful purples or blues, or if you're looking at a cat that has browns and oranges in its fur, try to get those colors instead of just going with the white. So a lot of times when I'm painting an animal, like especially a fuzzy animal, a furry animal, I try to just in a few parts of the animal get the fur, get the texture of the fur. The picture I'm working with, the cats are so sleek. I don't really need to get all the fur details. Okay. And I know we're probably all working at different paces. Cats' eyes are really big in the front of their face. That means that they're hunters. When animals have eyes in the front of their face, they're hunters. Animals with eyes on the side of their face are usually prey because they got to keep watch. So I am going to start by, I have a bunch of colors here. I'm just gonna grab my kind of lavender color for now and just start to block in things. I'm not going to go the darkest yet, and I'm not going to go the lightest I can go yet. I'm just going to start to block in different values. This just gives me something to respond to on my canvas. Just doing more of a loose painting to indicate where the shadows are. And such. I'll try to put this better. A weird shadow on my canvas. It's my head. And when I'm painting an animal, again, especially a furry one, I will run the brush strokes in the direction that I see the fur growing. Often I'll do that just to help with getting that fur. But the lighting on this photograph that I'm using, there's so many gorgeous, the cat is so velvety. Apparently black cats don't get adopted as much as other cats. Some people speculate that it has to do with they don't look as colorful in the adoption center. I don't know. So I am something I'm going to attempt to do. I'm really sorry for the glare on my painting right now. This is a new problem. Something I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to attempt to paint this cat with more of the chromatic black and the other cat with black pigment mixed with a little bit of color, but mostly black pigment, just to see if there's a big difference. You can approach this however you would like. Oh my goodness, I wish I could figure out how to deal with this glare. So I'm still just laying in the darks and the lights. It does help that there's really good lighting on this photograph. I know often there will be pictures of black cats and they look like little black balls without a lot of highlights or shadows. So again, just to keep you in the loop, I am not using black pigment for this cat. So I mixed a little bit of blue and titanium white for some of these highlights in the fur. So I'm going to have one brush with lights, and then I'm going to do another brush for another small flat brush for darks, details. So I don't have to keep wiping off my brush. So sometimes when I do fur, also I'll do a broken color stroke, which is when you don't mix the paint up all the way on your brush. So there'll be little striations in the brush stroke. And that can help also give the appearance of fur. What I do is I'll do that first, and then I go back into it with a small brush and kind of accentuate some of the individual hairs. Not sure if y'all can hear the fly buzzing around in my studio. And I often keep the body a little bit looser, um, and do a little more detail in the face. So I had to wait for that to dry a little bit before I put this amber eye in there, because otherwise it was just mixing in too much. And if you wait for the paint to set up, you can get a nice buttery mark. Don't forget the highlight in your cat's eye. There's always some kind of a white highlight in any eye, really, generally, because eyes are slick. So that little dot of highlight is gonna be the next thing that um, the detail that you need in your eye to make it look just a little more lifelike. I'm gonna let this hang out for a minute, and I'm gonna work on the second one using black paint, black pigment. I'm gonna mix a little bit of red into my black though. Definitely finding it kind of satisfying how dark I'm getting right off the bat. It's kind of nice. I don't know why my lamp black. It smells like oil paint, but it's definitely not oil paint. I am mixing some other colors into my black now. I'm mixing a little blue and purple in there. If I hadn't started on this gray background, like if I had started on an orange or a white background, this would be probably turning out a little bit differently. I definitely like painting details with these small flat brushes. And the reason is because I don't have to keep changing brushes or loading up my paint. With the small rounds, sometimes it's hard to paint at an angle with those. They're better for painting flat. But these small flat brushes, I just find they're really great for getting like a little line. You just have to get used to kind of turning them in your hand. So I'll just talk about whiskers real quick. If you notice, the whiskers aren't just white lines like plastered on top of the cat. There's a lot of changes in the whiskers also. We don't always see the entire whisker. There's like thickness and thinness to the whisker. So again, this is why I like to use a flat brush like this because, oh, you can't see that. Hold on. Because you can just get sometimes like a better line where you can go thick and then thin, especially if you are painting at an angle like this. But so I don't use a bright white either when I do the whisker. I will use very light gray. And this is something I know, like sometimes people will say, oh, I can't do it because my hands are shaking. I have shaky hands too, but I think, like, first of all, the trick is to not make your whisker bright white because then it's just going to look like these white lines on the canvas. Or like white stripes. And I just find like if you can press down and then release at the end, you can get a nice variation in the cat whisker. I usually will wait till the very end to put on the whiskers, but in the interest of time, I just want to, I mean, you have to deal with the whiskers. 9 times out of 10, you're going to see whiskers in a kitty cat. So I do want to discuss them, but yeah, don't try to just make them a little more subtle. Unless you're doing like a super stylization of the cat, where you're really simplifying all the elements of it, then you might just do like more just solid stripes for the whiskers. Again, with some of the fur details in the face, I will pull the brush in the direction that the hair is growing. I think that's probably pretty obvious, but So hopefully you can see how you would begin this process of creating the really, I think, complex shadows and highlights in a black cat, or crow or goat or dog, whatever it is you're working from. I want to try to paint some black in the background real quick just to see how that's going to look. Let's see. I'm going to take black out of the tube and mix red and blue and brown into it. And start with that. Maybe put a little water in there. And maybe try to do the gradation that they're doing. I just love the idea of a black cat on a black background. I'm into it lately. Next week, we're going to be doing a nighttime scene. So that's why I wanted to approach this topic of mixing black today. So you would have that a little bit under your belt, and it might make more sense next week when we're working with painting a nighttime scene. So if there's any questions at this point, let me know. I know I kind of went quickly over a lot of things. I just want to really quick, this is why I did this. So in order to avoid this cat just getting lost in the black background, what I need to do is put those highlights in the fur around it so that it pops out a little bit more. And in my picture, I can see like these highlights here on the forehead, on the ear. And you see how that will pop that out. Hi, Paulette. Thanks for joining us. Glad you could make it. So I hope that y'all are having fun painting your black cats. Please send me whatever it is you do. I would love to see it. I'd love to post it. And hopefully I'll finish this and I can get this posted as well. But this is just a really loose painting of a black cat. I am going to hop off of here a little bit early today. So I'm going to take off right now, but if you enjoyed this, I hope you can see my kitty cats. I will say it was a lot easier to paint using the black pigment and then mixing other dark colors into it. This one was a little bit more of a struggle, but I'm going to go in there and keep working it. This one felt a little bit easier because of the black. Oh, thanks, Jennifer. It's so awesome to have you on the chat. Thanks for joining today. Okay, so this was super fun. I love October. I hope everyone's having fun. I have to get going, but please send me your pictures. Feel free to like the video, share it with your friends, have them send me their pictures. I'd love to see them. All right, till next week when we paint a nighttime scene. I will see you then. Bye, everyone.